What's going on, everyone? It's Wednesday, 11 o'clock Eastern here in New York. So we go live, Coffee with Creators. You guys know this is not a green screen. This is 42 West 18th Street here in New York. And you know you're always welcome here. Rafael knows he's welcome here. In fact, he's been here since last night. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
We're going to do who this guy is. But first, I got to do some house cleaning, keeping. I don't know. What do you call that? I'm going to go and say a quick thank you to our sponsor. Happens to be CaptureOne. Kind of crazy. Where is it? There it is. Oh, it's white. You guys can barely see it. CaptureOne is industry standard. Rafael is the CEO, and he didn't even hesitate when I asked him to come on here. And that's what's so great about it. One, if you want to work commercially in this industry, you've got to know CaptureOne, and they make it really easy. You can go to CaptureOne's website and try it out for 7 days. Also, you can take a 3-hour free class online at your leisure. Do a minute here, do an hour there, spend all day, whatever you want, and you will actually have a certification from CaptureOne. If you want to be an assistant and you say you have that, forget about it. So if you don't know about CaptureOne, you actually do, because every demo we've ever done out of here has been shot through CaptureOne. You're watching Daniel Norton use it live, use myself, Ab Cisse, Joe McNally, Lindsay Adler, and the list goes on and on. We'll get into more about CaptureOne in a minute. And I also want to give a quick thank you to Tenba, because Tenba was like, you're doing something cool. We want to be part of it. We love photographers. So, Rafael, you get the custom Tenba Coffee Creators bag.
Oh, it's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Amazing. It'll travel with me everywhere.
You travel a lot, too,
a little bit.
You are all over the world. Tenba was started right here in New York in 1977 by a photographer. And if you've been in this industry long enough, you probably had a Tenba bag somewhere along the line. And I love their tech cases that have clear sides that I can see everything I need. Love it. They're in every bag I got. Check out that full line below. And lastly, I got to say a quick thank you to Gotham Roasters. Cheers, guy. What'd you get?
Cheers. I got a double espresso.
Hot on 100-degree day.
I've been in Europe for 20 plus years. Like, some culture had to rub off.
Gotham Roasters is 1 block up on 19th Street. If you're coming to Adorama, go there. Tell them Adorama sent you. Say what's up. Grab a seat here for a class and enjoy. And don't forget, Gotham Roasters is owned by a photographer and a filmmaker. So you're supporting the game with that.
That's great coffee.
It is good, right?
It's great coffee.
Who is Rafael Orta? So Rafael's actually been in the technology space for like 3 decades. And then all of a sudden, CaptureOne spun away from Phase One, which was this legendary brand of the most high-end cameras ever, huge sensors, incredible image quality. But CaptureOne was its own entity, and I would argue was in more people's lives and workspaces because it was a software instead of a $100,000 camera. And it just became this force of nature for all of us to use on set. You entered in about 2020, 2021?
I joined in January 2021, yeah.
And you became the CEO, and you're like, we're going to do all this stuff. And since then, CaptureOne has, and I can speak as a user, has been drastically different, way easier to use. There's so many more tools that are actually relevant to today. And one of the things I really appreciate about CaptureOne is a new camera comes out. I have an update the day before the camera releases to let the raw files work. I don't wait 3 months for it to be read. I own this camera. I'm using it on that set that day. I got to say, CaptureOne has been not only on the ball, but ahead of it a little bit. And I just think that people need to start humanizing a little bit and realizing there's people behind that. Your team is small.
Yeah, 122 people. Yeah, mostly in Copenhagen. We also have an office in Athens. And we have offices in New York City and in London.
Yeah, downtown over by
Soho.
Yeah. And first of all, where did you come from in the technology space? Because all I know is you're like weird. All right. I'm like, where did Rafael come from?
I get that a lot.
But all they say is technology. They never tell me where in technology you came from.
Yeah.
Where did you come from?
So I'm a computer scientist, but the reality is that I'm one of those people that got interested in technology when I was very, very young. And technology software for me is as much of a calling as anything else has been in my life. And I started my career, I'm originally from Venezuela. So quite naturally, I started my career in the oil and gas industry, writing software. Eventually, I moved into consumer goods. And then the longest stint in my career was in e-commerce. I spent 10 years working at eBay and a couple of years working at Tesco, which is a big supermarket in the UK, which has a big e-commerce division.
So where did CaptureOne come in? Because that's e-commerce is one thing, but this is a software that people depend on for their livelihood and build complete careers on.
Yeah, exactly. So when CaptureOne spun out from Phase One, the owners of the company, they were looking for someone who had experience in building software businesses. And at that time is when my career intersected with CaptureOne. And I didn't come from the photography industry or from a creative background. But the very day that I got the contract and the final offer and I signed it, I bought a camera. And that started my journey of like learning everything that I can about, about photography and about the industry. And I take it with me everywhere. Like there's always a camera in my bag. And in fact, more recently, the team have started to push me to like, look, you have to like be familiar with different brands and different types of cameras.
Right.
So they push me for like, look, leave your own camera here and take this one. But yeah, you will always find me with a camera in my bag. But look, tech has been something that I developed a passion for when I was a very young child, and like here I am, like 30 plus years after, and it's still something that is very important to me, and it's very important for me that software is something that moves humanity and moves industries forward.
Yeah, and I got to say, when I first met Rafael, I didn't know he was CEO. The guy just comes out, hangs out. He had a Canon in his hand. I was doing a demo at your booth, which, by the way, when I first met him, the booths were like this big. You could fit one shoe inside the booth. Since then, you guys have really understood the idea of making a presence, understanding, no, we're CaptureOne. And I learned you were, I think like 2 years later, I learned you were CEO. So it was just kind of like, it's very human. I really liked that about it. But it's funny how you jumped in. What when you first came into CaptureOne, what was the first thing you said? Like, this has to change. We're going to go this direction. What was it at the very beginning for you? What did you see in CaptureOne?
So CaptureOne and Phase One was founded in 1993 in Copenhagen, and CaptureOne is the software division, or was the software division at the time. So it is a Danish company by establishment. Our business is global. The majority, like our biggest business, is the US, and followed by the UK and France and Germany. We also have quite a big business in Japan. So the first thing that I wanted to do was, we have to convert this company into a global and international company, which was the motivation. And like this even started with like, hey, like the language that we use to communicate internally at CaptureOne, it has to be English, so that we can start to attract international talent and like have a more have a team that represents the makeup of our users and our customers. And then we opened the office in Athens, which initially it was just a handful of engineers, and over time it's grown to be a second office for us, and we have a huge diversity of different team members in there, including finance and data and support, engineering, design. And today we have 28 nationalities under the roof at CaptureOne. So
Wow.
like the company now looks a lot more like our customer base, and it really has given us access to like understand how can we serve the US market effectively, and how can we serve the Japanese market effectively. And we have all of those nationalities and skills inside. So that was like step one. And then the other step was, how do we connect very, very closely with the industry itself? I wanted CaptureOne to have a great deal of clarity about who we are and who we serve. And it's incredibly humbling when you join the company to appreciate, something that you have told me a huge number of times which is how critical the company was for that transition of the commercial photography industry from analog to digital. It was an entirely new workflow that was created because, CaptureOne was available and it existed. And like I sometimes when I'm walking around like big cities like New York, and like I look at like the ads on the side of a bus, or on the side of a bus stop, or like if I'm browsing social and I see some content, it always reminds me, it might be like key art from a movie. It always reminds me, like like the odds are that this was created using CaptureOne.
Yes.
So this 120 people that work for CaptureOne, like they have their fingerprints over some of the most commercially valuable and culturally influential photos that you see out there. And only a couple of years ago, also the Associated Press became a client of CaptureOne. So now it's even like photojournalism and like the Super Bowl. So I decided that, we have to take this incredibly seriously, because for the people that are using CaptureOne for all of these applications, this is their career, and their reputation stands on, like they show up at one of these studios or they show up at one of these events and they turn on their cameras, they fire up their workstation, they plug a cable here, plug a cable there, and everything has to work.
Yes.
Everything has to be stable. Everything has to be fast. And also the image quality has to be amazing, right? Like when you see those photos coming up on those screens, I've heard so many times that a photographer is like, like in there in the cove with the model, and they hear from the back of the room, "We got the shot," and like how they live for that moment, and that's the that's the process that we serve. Those are the people that we serve.
Yeah, CaptureOne became so critical. There was nothing as reliable to me. But the biggest thing for me was when I realized how different my raw files were interpreted by CaptureOne, how much more I got out of the raw file. And then if you're a professional, you have to understand that everything on your set is being funneled down into this interface now. That interface has to be pristine, and you can't have tether drop while you're in the middle of this. Now your model their head starts going somewhere else. You're trying to futz with a cable. Everything became more and more reliable for me. And I think that's what really became the power of CaptureOne, is people didn't want to play games. They were just like, let's go with that program that I've been using forever. Then the assistants learn it. Then the assistants bring it with them when they become full-time professionals. But what you're saying about the bus stop and everything, what most people don't get is that image that they're looking at, around that tether is a whole crew of people who are their livelihood.
Yeah.
This is 15 people probably that are depending on this to feed themselves and keep this industry for tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And like one of the reasons why we picked the location for our office in New York City, which is in Soho, is because every week the team will send us a photo, which is we stepped out of the office and there was a whole photo crew here doing a fashion photo shoot in the streets of Soho. And they walk up to them and they're using CaptureOne and they hand out business cards and they say, like, look, we're just up here in this building, like anything you need from us. It's that connectivity into the industry that for me, and like being a company based in Copenhagen, like Copenhagen is an incredibly special city. And anyone, if you have the opportunity to visit, like that, like number one place for quality of life, like it's totally real and you will totally see why. But at the same time, like the industry is, it's very, very focalized in New York City and in London and in Paris and in Hamburg and in Tokyo. So like we needed to be connected to the energy and the drivers of the industry. So that was like the second big change. I personally speak to thousands of photographers every year.
Kidding.
I will like stand in that booth in WPPI or Imaging USA or the photography show in the UK. I visit 150 studios every year. When I come here, I have lunch with a few photographers today, dinner with more photographers this evening, another dinner tomorrow, and it's all like just that, like listening and but also the rest of the team, right? It's like role modeling what I expect from everyone else at CaptureOne, which is like, go to an event, like go and do a visit, do a demo for a client. When you go to a CaptureOne booth, like you are going to meet people that have a job at CaptureOne. At Imaging, we had like someone from our HR team.
Yeah.
So like it's not like, oh, you're just going to meet like the people the trainers or the people that can do demos. No, you're going to meet, an engineer, a designer, someone who works in marketing, someone who works in HR, someone who works in support. You're going to get a good like cross section of like who we are, but also the team are going to be exposed to like, these are the people for whom CaptureOne is a core part of their career and their livelihood. And many of our clients is like, look, this is how I pay the mortgage, this is how I pay school fees, etc.
Oh no, when you talk about it, I have a very humble personal Discord. He's in there answering questions one-to-one with people that are just like, how come we can't do this? Well, it can if you do that. Like he's literally in there within a few minutes answering. The CEO, not someone from the company, not random name that has no person behind it. You are physically in there. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you joined. I was like, cool, I'll join it. But you're literally in this chat room almost every day, and you're sharing. I mean, today you just launched the wireless generation, wireless Tether 2, which is with Canon, which is super brilliant. I'm going to get to that in a second. But also, forget out the booth. You guys can go to a Digitech meetup wherever you're at. Check out CaptureOne on Eventbrite. I think Eventbrite, right? And you can go and hang out with a whole group of people that are using this software, talking about their concerns about what they want to see change or what could work better, right to CaptureOne. And that's when I saw the demo for the wireless tether. I was literally on the corner of Adorama, and the way you're doing the wireless tether is brilliant. A raw file is going to be a raw file. It's big, they're heavy files. And so wirelessly, they might take a minute to show up. CaptureOne is basically taking an AI preview of it, getting you as close to what it will look like as a preview while the rest of the data comes over. So your experience isn't inhibited, but it's working the way it has to work.
Yeah.
First of all, how long did it take to develop this? Where did it, I think everybody always wanted a wireless tether. I myself am very squeamish about it.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm in New York. There's a lot of signals going everywhere. You did kind of, it was a very impressive demo. So I'll let you get into, how did you get to that point with the wireless tether? Where did this AI preview idea come from?
So it actually comes from a long-term vision that we have for, we've tried to think about in a few years' time, what is photography going to be like? And like we spend a lot of time focused on what are the things that are going to be the same and what are things that we believe are going to be different. So the things that we believe are going to be the same are, commercial photography, professional photography. It's still going to be a multidisciplinary like team effort where, like even the smallest team will be a couple of people, and sometimes it's going to be many more. And it will require very effective collaboration. And ultimately, like the focus of the process is going to be the creative workflow that these people are pursuing. But then we start to ask ourselves, but what is going to be different? So, we believe that in the photography workflow, there will still be a camera, and the camera will still basically look like, like a rectangle with a cylinder sticking out from the front.
They all look the same, right?
They all look the same. But there will be hardware that will have become smaller, like battery technology is like progressing so fast that, we can see, the lights will become smaller. And then if all of the hardware that you have in there becomes smaller, then all of a sudden, like all of the other hardware and stands that you have in there, they will also become lighter and smaller. And the workstations will become smaller. And then we started to ask ourselves, so what happens with the cables, right? Like, if you have like more powerful, more durable batteries, like a lot of the power cables will start to disappear. And then what happens to the tether cable? So we started to ask ourselves this question of like, look, what do we imagine like this collaborative effort will look like in the future? And how could we create a tethered experience that feels as fast, as reliable, as stable as using a cable, but without one? And then that's how we start. Like that's how every engineering problem starts, is you just start with an incredibly complex question. And you should have seen some of the first prototypes for this technology was basically, having a camera and having a little grip for an iPhone. And then it was the camera connected to the iPhone, and it was using the incredibly powerful Wi-Fi chipsets that are, in smartphones today. And then that's how we started like building out this technology. But then we started dialogue with manufacturers to say like, look, how much of this technology can we actually bring into the body of the camera? And of course, we're incredibly proud of like having progressed over the last couple of years with Canon. Something that is interesting about the company is that we have a team that visits Tokyo every year, and we go and like we do the rounds with all of the Japanese manufacturers. This I visited in January last year, and that's where we presented this idea to the Canon team. And then we just kept pulling that thread. So incredibly proud to be where we are, and like to have released it a month ago and to release it for mobile today. So now you can the exact same thing that you can do with your MacBook or your Windows. You can do it now with an iPad, for example.
So if you're in CaptureOne and you're shooting Canon, I think it's R5, R1,
R5 Mark II, and R1.
You can try it out now, and it's only going to, I guess, roll out to more from here. Canon was the first though, and from what I understand, from one of your own staff was telling me, like, because it has a similar way of interpreting raw files that CaptureOne does, or something like that.
Well, it requires deep collaboration between us and a manufacturer, and it is about like, hey, like what data can we get from the camera in advance of the full raw file? But the data that allows us to generate a high quality preview, and a high quality preview that you can apply any adjustments to, because like as you know, like when you're shooting tethered, a lot of the adjustments are happening in real time during the shoot, and then they get applied to all of the next
Yes.
captures.
Yeah.
So we needed to have a high quality preview that could like render all of those adjustments with very high fidelity until the full data from the raw file shows up.
That's the big thing, is it actually is a wireless tether. We've seen other wireless attempts in the past over the years, and they just get the file over, but you're not working in the program and it's applying. So that's it really is a wireless tether.
And if you send a JPEG, then you can't apply the adjustments because they're all baked in.
Right. There's a bunch of questions in the chat. We're going to get into some of these in a second. I
can see that Dave Bergman is saying that he missed me in the office, that's a really cool example. I saw that David was on his way to the Luke Combs concert in Gothenburg.
He's always at a Luke
exactly, and he was in Copenhagen. So yeah, incredibly grateful, David, for you coming by the office and seeing the team there. And to be honest, like, we absolutely love having photographers in the office and giving you all a tour. And we're actually in the very same address where phase 1 was founded.
Yeah. I know. When you guys had the opening party, I broke my ankle, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna get down there one day. I always get this question. Pavel's asking basically about pricing. So CaptureOne used since 2015, bought every year, every version, switched to subscription last year, got the info about another price increase. So you have any comment on the price increasing, or?
Yeah, so I'll tell you how I see the industry. This is a software for photographers is a super competitive industry.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So there's a ton of different options, and the pricing, it goes all the way down to zero, right? Like there's raw therapy and dark table, etc. So there's a ton of even free options. So like what we decided in the company was we can't differentiate via pricing, because wherever we set the price, there will always be a cheaper option, and that's always going to be a slippery slope. So the only way how we can differentiate is, firstly, we have to deliver the best quality of image and the best colors. So we've invested a ton into these relationships with the manufacturers. For example, when I joined the company, we had a strategic partnership with Fujifilm, which has been a very, very rich partnership. And then over time, we announced partnerships with Leica and with Panasonic Lumix, and more recently with Hasselblad. And of course, we work very closely with Canon and also with Nikon.
Yeah, but not just Fujifilm. You got GFX.
Yeah.
There was a long time it was like GFX will never happen. It's seen as a competitor, and then you guys did it. You know?
But and it's that relationship, which is both technical and commercial, that allows us to create beautiful images, beautiful quality. So that's one thing. Then secondly, we differentiate on speed and reliability and stability. And something that you were saying about how we believe that technology has to behave in a professional context is that it has to blend into the background. Like we call it, our technology, it has to become the background of the process, because the foreground is the images that are being taken. Now, the only way to do that is if it always works.
Right. It can't be a problem.
There can't be problems. Like there can't be lag. There can't be, it can't be flickering. Like it just has to work.
No, the best is your miracle of retether.
Yeah.
Last night I did that demo.
Exactly.
I ripped the cable out. Didn't even have a memory card in the camera.
Yeah.
Plugged the cable in and still pulled the image.
And because that gives you and the model, and if there's a bigger team, it gives them the confidence that like everything is, the data is safe, all the files are there, all the shots are there.
You missed nothing.
And then the next thing that we started to invest in was, we have to invest in community. And you were talking about the event that you went to. Like we do. In the second half of this year, we have more than 30 events planned across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was saying earlier, we send our own teams. Like we don't get hired guns into these events, right? It's like team members that travel, go to these events. We invested into support. So now we have a team here in the US. We have support members here in the US, so that we can expand the footprint and the time zones that we cover with our technical, but also customer support. So those are the ways how we believe that we can differentiate in a market that is so competitive. Like, look, even yesterday, there's a whole new editing app that was launched by 3 developers. So it's like, look, this is a competitive market, and what we bring is we bring this proposition of like, look, we will give you the best image quality, best speed, best stability, best reliability, support, and also a community of photographers around CaptureOne.
You're paying in. It's just like any other professional tool. You're paying into it being there for you when you need to be there for you, and its reliability. Someone, Grego is saying, longtime professional user. My question for Rafael is regarding rapidly worsening Sony support. At this point, Resolve has better Sony RAW image support than you guys. Any upcoming fixes for this?
Yeah, like we are working on offering on broadening out the support that we have for Sony files. With the latest cameras, we have released support for the uncompressed RAWs, but we acknowledge that there's a whole bunch of other file formats that are proprietary to Sony, and we hope to be able to launch support for them in the next few months.
So you guys have thrown, I think in the last year or two, a lot of AI tools, AI brush, AI eraser, AI masking, AI subject detection, which I really appreciate, because you can actually shoot and recognize a human, and then it'll give me the loop on the side going right to an eyeball because it knows where the eyeball is,
exactly.
Right? Amazing stuff. But AI has become this very contentious point. We have a lot of other softwares out there that are people are wondering if they're using the images to train it. I've never had to connect CaptureOne to the internet. So how are you guys training your AI? From what I understand, you're taking what they would call an ethical approach. What does that even mean? What are you doing to train your AI for CaptureOne to stay competitive?
Yeah. So look, let me start from the following. At CaptureOne, we have never had a crisis of identity about who we are. Most people, they look at CaptureOne and they speak to us and they think of us as, oh, you're a software company and you build this software. The reality is that when you get to know us a little bit better, one of the things that you appreciate is that we're actually a photography company. We've got dozens of photographers inside of the team. Many of the photos that you see used in our marketing and our socials on our website, they've been produced by us. When they're not produced by us, we have gone and bought the rights to use them from a photographer that we're working with. In CaptureOne, if you put up a PowerPoint and it has a photo and you don't have credits, someone will raise their hand and will call you out and will say, that's my photo. We run a monthly photography competition. The winners of that competition, we print them and we put them up on the walls. So
that's pretty cool.
Look, another thing that I always say is we have more cameras than employees in CaptureOne. So when you visit us in Copenhagen, we'll open up the camera cabinets for you, and we have cameras going back 20 years, and it's because, and you will see that people are walking around our office with a camera in our hands. So coming back to your question, actually for us, it wasn't difficult because we never had the crisis of identity about, oh, are we a photography company or a software company or an AI company? We're like, no, we're a photography company to begin with. And then we asked ourselves the question, so it's obvious that, these technologies, they're incredibly powerful and they have some utility for the industry. So how do we bring that utility into the workflow? How do we make this useful for photographers? And we have been, as a company, profoundly offended by seeing tech companies that have ingested the work of photographers, trained models, built platforms, and then turned that back at the same people that created that work and said, oh, and sometimes even in a mockingly way, it's oh, I can create a facsimile of your work that is, just a little bit different. Or, now, you're not necessary, right? I can do all of this work and I don't need a photographer. And that was profoundly offensive for people at CaptureOne. So we decided, look, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this in a way that is consistent and coherent with, our own values and our own principles, and frankly, our own humanity, which is look, we're a part of this industry. And to the extent that, big tech and, AI companies are, very powerful and they have huge resources, we fully believe that it is, we play a role in defending this industry and protecting the future of this industry, and defining what the future of this industry is going to be. So our approach has always been like, look, we will create our own images, like when we need to, like, like for example, retouch faces, right? Like a really, really powerful feature. But how do we train it? Well, we take hundreds of pictures of people that work at CaptureOne. Like people sign, like it's not mandatory. If you want to participate in that, you sign a release form.
You're photographing your own employees.
We sign a release form, and then you go to we've got a studio set up in the office. It's not a commercial grade studio, but it's quite a decent studio space with all of the equipment that we need. We take hundreds, thousands of photos, and we have the rights to like train our models and our platforms with the photos that we have, and that's how we do this, and we do it in a way that it's just consistent with our identity and our values. And then that extends to many other things. Like, for example, like, we work in partnership with associations like, the AOP in the US, the ASMP here in the UK, the AOP in the UK, the ASMP here in the US, and PPA here in the US, not only on software initiatives, but also in work that relates to how can we make sure that the work of photographers is protected by legislation and by regulatory frameworks. That means that the people who have the rights to this work get compensated for the use of that work. And we also invest hugely into the next generations. So, there's more than 200 photography schools around the world that use CaptureOne as part of their studies, and more than 9,000 students, which means that has given us access to how do the future generations of photographers think about what the industry should be? Because ultimately, those are the people that, in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time, those are the people that will define what this industry is. I'll be honest with you, like sometimes it feels really, really hard and really, really uphill. But at the same time, like, this is our industry. Like we're not on the sidelines here and like looking in and seeing like, hey, what's going to happen here? Like, no, we're on the boat. We tied ourselves to the mast, and we will go where the industry goes, and we will chip in to like define what the future of this industry is going to be.
Has anything been surprising for you? Because I feel like CaptureOne is a photography first company, but you came from outside of the game. You came to us, right? You're coming to our species. Has anything about this industry surprised you?
When I was during my onboarding period, I of course met, and this was like at the time when there was still a lot of restrictions around like travel, like early 2021. So, a lot of my onboarding and meeting photographers was done online, which was actually helpful in terms of like, being able to meet a ton of people. And I will always remember meeting Paul Reefer, who's, he's been a Phase One ambassador for the longest time. He's also has his own community. And he told me, Rafael, he's quite a gruff guy. He told me, Rafael, photographers are grumpy. And I made a note of that. Photographers are grumpy. And then over time, what I discovered is how, photographers in this industry, people are incredibly passionate about the photography itself. It's a matter, it's something that, people care about in the form of like, it's part of almost their identity and, how they define themselves.
It's an art form, man.
And what that has meant is that, we get a lot of very candid feedback about everything in relation to CaptureOne. And that has been incredibly helpful for us to define the direction of the company, because, it's a lot. I've always found that it's a lot harder to try and like second guess or like, where's this industry going? Or what does this community want? What do these users need? But we get to hear about it, and we get to hear about it in a very vocal way. I don't know if you may or may not remember this. In 2021, we changed the way how export works. We removed the export tab from CaptureOne, and it was a well-meaning change intended to make CaptureOne more usable, but it fundamentally changed the workflow, the commercial workflow, and an open letter was spun up by a digitech called Brian Faney in LA, and like you can still like look that up online. It says like open letter from a digitech to CaptureOne. And it was signed by hundreds of, photographers and digitechs. And it's, and Fane is an incredibly bright guy, and like, he was super coherent in the way how he wrote it, and very, very clear. But, like, I've always taken that as a privilege, as in, like, do you know how many people in my position people would kill for having customers that care so much about
Right.
their product and their brand and the service that we give people like you, to like sit down and write like 1,000 words telling you, like, look, here's what you need to know and here's what you need to do. And like, I always say, like, we're a brand that has a subreddit. Like,
Yeah.
like, can you imagine? And we didn't create that subreddit. That was the community. That was our users.
I gotta tell you, like CaptureOne, this sounds so bizarre and almost parasocial, but CaptureOne always to me felt like a partnership.
Mm.
I never felt like I was buying software or I couldn't pinpoint a face to the brand or something like that. It was everywhere I ever went, every rental studio, every commercial set I was hired on, anywhere I had to go work in this industry that was for real, it was CaptureOne. But if there was something wrong, some problem, if I reached out, I got an answer. And every time I saw one of you guys, I'd give you a list of everything I think you should do. I was like, I must be such a pain to these guys. But then you were like, no, this is everybody. Everybody gives me a list of what we got to do.
Yeah.
And you actually started a feature request portal.
Yeah,
like,
aha.io. Yeah. And there's a feature request portal. You can go there, you can upvote, and you can create your own request as well. And, we look at that, in a very methodical way. And we peel it back, and like we also consolidate some of the requests that might be, like might rhyme, and like, so that's one of the many inputs into like, okay, like what do we need to build now?
So when I went to that Digitech meetup, the first thing they did was set up a QR code for you to scan so that while everything's going on, you can anonymously ask questions that they will load up and go through them all. They were making sure, one, you didn't feel weird if you had something to ask. Because I think a lot of people get intimidated, like, is this a stupid thing to request? Because you're around a bunch of professionals. Forget that whole part. And then they wanted to make sure they got to it.
Yeah.
They wanted to make sure that they actually made sure to read it. So like, I mean, I can't think of another company that's that hands-on. I think you depend on the people as much as they depend on you, and that's why I think it's a partnership.
Yeah, and so that was Costas, who's our VP of Product and Technology, and Marshall Long, who runs our product training specialist here in the US. And yeah, like I didn't join that one specifically, but they did tell me, like, look, we stayed until the last question was answered, and that was hours and hours, and a lot of pizza was consumed.
Yeah, well, it's New York. What are you gonna do?
Of course.
Speaking of which, the next one that's coming up, I think it's on the 23rd. Joe McNally is going to be shooting live with your tech.
Yeah.
Forever, I've been on Joe's sets.
Yeah.
I was Joe's tech. Okay, so like I really want to watch them with someone that actually knows what they're doing. So like I'm just a schmuck that tethers in and tries to survive my job, But a real tech, I don't think people realize what a luxury it is to have a real Digitech on set, and how that's another thing completely off your plate. What do you think is like the biggest responsibility for Digitechs, and why did they gravitate to CaptureOne over something else? Did the Digitechs make CaptureOne what it is? Was it the industry? I feel like CaptureOne was always great, but if the Digitechs don't adopt it, you're not the company, right? What was that relationship like? How did that get built?
Yeah. So, and we know the history of this, all the way back to like the early days of the industry, where companies like Digital Fusion in the East Coast and in the West Coast, but also Digital Transitions over here, and Capture Integration. Yeah, look at that. How they were defining what this like industry standard digital workflow was going to be. And we've always, worked in, like had a very close relationship with Digitex, albeit, like what I just said earlier, which is, at some point, we did something that was, it was disappointing to the workflow, and it was disruptive to the workflow, and they made it known to us.
They had a temper tantrum.
But like we've always had this, very, very close relationship with them. So who are they? So they are responsible for all of the technology, related to, the workstation and the screens and camera connectivity, and crucially data integrity. So, at the start of the shoot, the Digitech will, confer with the photographer and the rest of their team. And, there will be a series of standards that will be defined around folder naming and file naming and formats that will be delivered. And then at the end of the day, there's this export event that happens and it happens to an SSD, and then that SSD is handed over to the photographer, and that's the handshake, right? Like that. But so this person is responsible for, at the end of the day, you will hand over the whole body of work that happened during the day, and you have this responsibility for all of the technology and the data, the integrity of all of that throughout the day. It's an incredible, like, like I've met, dozens and dozens of like some of the most, the leading digitechs in the world, like, like George Brooks, for example, who's on our certification course. He started as the digitech to Mark Seliger here in New York City.
Wow.
So he would be at like the Oscars Vanity Fair party, right? And like he was responsible for like, look, this celebrity like steps into the shooting bay, and it's going to be there for like 2-3 minutes, and like those photos, those files have to be in the workstation. There have to be 5 copies as well. So that idea of like running these like high intensity, high stakes photo shoots and making all of the technology work. So naturally we gravitated towards them. And then what we've discovered is that they are incredibly creative people. Like many of them have most of them actually have a background in photography.
Of
So
course,
Marshall
yeah.
Long, who for example is in-house with the company, like he's a great photographer. Similarly, he takes his camera everywhere, and he's got his own like personal projects, but he gravitated towards being a digitech. And they're incredibly creative in the solutions that they build and the way how they use the software. And we always say, like, look, we build CaptureOne for the needs and the requirements of a tech, because if they push it to the boundaries, and if it works for them, we know that it's going to work for everyone else. But also they're the ones who see like, where are the bottlenecks and where is it a little bit clunky. And I was saying that they're very creative. Like many of them have built these own like independent businesses of like hardware and accessories and 3D printed widgets that are like super useful to have on set, like iPad cages and clamps, the camera hoops. People like Laimonas in the UK or Brian Faney here in the US. And then more recently, that has translated into a whole industry of like little apps that they're creating that serve their needs in studio workflow. So they're incredibly inventive. And the other thing that they are is, you have no idea how cool they are. Like they're totally unflappable, right? Like they're sitting at those workstations, working under huge amounts of pressure, like files flying in, and they're always like level.
Yeah. Freaking out does nothing for anybody.
No.
But like everything boils down. Forget about the lights you bought, the camera using, the lens that's on there. Forget the time on that rental state. Like everything boils down to that. One of the things that I learned how crucial a digitech was. I was doing a commercial job uptown a million years ago. I want to say it was IKEA, but I was probably wrong. I was on a laptop and it went down. And before that job, the producer was like, you want to put in a digitech for the budget? I was like, nah, I'll just take more money, But she was like, get a digitech. I was like, fine, whatever. I wanted to make a good impression. Laptop goes down. A rental laptop came up. This kid had a version of CaptureOne ready to load. My saved version of what was going on in my CaptureOne ready to load. I was back up in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. I am not even thinking about that whole aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I can just focus on this. Getting that all off your shoulders. I know I look chaotic here. I do everything in one shot, but like doing that, unbelievable. And I said this to you before we went live. I totally think CaptureOne should be the umbrella. You should be the distro for all these little odds and end 3D printed pieces. Put it under the creator's name as their own version of it. And the app store, just be like CaptureOne, like you're the whole thing. And then you get to go to Brian's widgets and Brian's little 3D. Like, you should totally do that. I think.
Of course.
Are you kidding me? Have you guys had any? Actually, let's address this because someone was talking about it in the chat. CaptureOne is not for sale.
CaptureOne is a private equity owned company.
Okay.
So and we've been under private equity ownership since 2014 when Silverfleet acquired Phase One, and then Silverfleet sold it to Accel in 2019. So, we're not changing ownership. Now, having said that, when in private equity, there will always be a change of ownership at some point in the future, but there's nothing to announce today. Like this is not happening.
Yeah.
Right now.
Petapixel put something up and all these red alarms whenever we're like, oh, CaptureOne's for sale. And every time you hear for sale in this industry, you're like, well, that was a good brand. We used to like them.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, here's I'm not a private equity guy, right?
Okay.
So I'm an operator, and I love what I do. This is the best job that I've ever had. And under, if you had like the partner from Excel here, like this is what he has told me is like, look, we're super happy owners of CaptureOne because it's a good business. It's a business that is growing. It's a business that is successful. It's a business that, has built very strong ties into, our customer base. We get, and, when we hear about things that we need to fix with, customers and with the product, like we jump on it. So like their feedback has been like, look, we're happy owners, and I don't spend any amount of my time thinking about like the ownership structure or who should be the owner. Like that's for the shareholders to decide. I spend all of my time like, how do we build great products? How do we serve best the industry? And how do we do that in such a way that, CaptureOne is a healthy and self-sustaining company, and we can keep investing into all of these things that are like the things that really matter to the industry, things like community and education and school programs and all of those things. And that's how I spend my time.
I just think CaptureOne has been so good in their approach. It just keeps getting better and more real and more tangible. It's never gone like, oh, I used to be good at this version, or they got rid of that thing that we used to like. Like it's always gotten just better. Like I'm so psyched on the software. It's the only software I'm really using now. Guys, last call for questions from you guys. Where do you see CaptureOne going? What's the direction you would ultimately like to get going? Because I think that's the question. Like, where do we go from here? You got a lot of doom and gloom out there with people thinking photography is losing segments. In fact, someone in the chat was asking about real estate photography. CaptureOne has always been focused mainly for me, portraiture, studio, fashion, e-commerce. Is there a future with CaptureOne doing something more landscape oriented and real estate oriented, or some other genre of photography more focused, or a separate version just for that, or maybe a mode or a tab or something in that regard? Because it's always been a studio tool to me.
Yeah.
And a studio could be anywhere. But if I'm shooting a landscape, does it have, I don't need retouching for a face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So is there any?
Yeah. So we're very, very genre focused. So we did start in the genre that you would broadly call commercial photography. So, like beauty and advertising. We've also become, we have a very, very big footprint in the e-commerce industry.
Oh, yeah,
so, we serve hundreds of thousands of, independent freelance photographers. But we also have about 1,000 brands that use CaptureOne in their studios, and there's many names that people would recognize. Nike, Ralph Lauren, Burberry. They're our clients, and they use CaptureOne in their in-house studios. And then over time, we started to focus on other genres, but we always were very methodical about like, look, we have to bring a great product to this genre, whether it's something that we build or something that we do in partnership. So an example of that was photojournalism, where we established a relationship with Camera Bits, who make Photo Mechanic.
Oh yeah,
and that's the way how we built an end-to-end workflow that is really, really powerful for the photojournalism industry, and it's the reason why the AP became a client. And then in the last few years, we've spent quite a bit of time focused on portrait photographers, headshot photographies. And then over time, we'll keep expanding into more and more genres. Like real estate is definitely one of those that is on the radar. And especially something that I can share very openly is the majority of users of CaptureOne are not tethered. So it's about 1/3 of our users that are shooting tethered. And then within that universe, there's about 1/4 that are shooting tethered to an iPad.
Oh, the iPad thing was massive.
So the iPad has become a very highly used device for tethered shooting because it provides a lot of flexibility. So it's one of those things that we've always looked at that and thought like, yeah, like that would be a really interesting solution. And now that we have the second generation wireless, it could become a really interesting workflow for the real estate industry. But like when we focus on a specific genre, like we just go all in. And whether it's work that we need to do, or if we need to work in partnership with folks like, Camera Bits, for example, or other companies, like we will do exactly that.
Yeah, it's just so crazy. I can't believe that's the numbers, because to me, tethering and CaptureOne is like synonymous.
Yeah.
And I don't even think about it like that. And I when I have to offload a card in those moments, like obviously people do that a lot, but to me, it's like you don't tether unless you have CaptureOne ready. So it's really interesting to hear that. So there's a question from Jacob asking relative to tethering. Does CaptureOne prefer a brand of cables? Is there a specific one I should look for when buying them?
So you know, cables, like we do recommend, like, look, find a high quality cable distributor in your own market. So, you know, for example, here in the US, we've got a very, very close relationship with Carlos Rodriguez from Luna Digital. And Carlos, he, you know, he's many people in LA call him like the OG Digitech. Like, he's been in the industry for, you know, 30 years. And he's very, very committed to building like very, very high quality cables. There's also some other US brands, like, for example, Area 51 and Tether Tools, of course, that have more recently also launched some very, very, you know, capable cables as well. In Europe, we have brands like Cobra Tether, who also have, you know, incredibly high quality. But, you know, like what we always say is like, look, it's a piece of of equipment that will determine a huge part of the tethered experience in terms of like speed and stability and reliability. So we always see it as like, look, we always recommend, like, look, go with one of the branded high quality cables that also come from the industry. Because this is the other thing that, you know, like, touching back on the point about like where will the industry go, is like, look, the future of the industry has to be defined by people from within the industry. And I've met all of these folks, right? You know, I've met Julian in Germany, I've met Carlos, and these are people that truly care about, you know, like the quality of the experience that, you know, folks in the industry have.
Whenever someone used to tell me like, oh, I hate tethering, the early days with those cables was so hit or miss, and I totally get it. But then they just threw it off the table and forgot about it. By the way, if you're looking for Luna cables, it's LVNA. I don't know why he did that. I hate it. But they are available here. There's a wall of them here at 42 West 18th Street. Also, Tether Tools Optima cable, which came into the market last year, which has no power delivery, so it's just pure data transfer. Been very reliable. So if you see a blue cable, that's Luna. If you see an orange cable, that's Tether Tools. But check them out. It's available at Adorama if you want. Again, I don't care what you guys buy. I'm just letting you know. Another question is, are we going to get better, faster wireless tethering for Nikon cameras?
So we just released it for Canon, and we, of course, you know, we work very closely with many different manufacturers, and, you know, we hope that over time we will be extending this technology into other bodies and other camera brands. You know, I don't have anything to announce today, but
right?
but it's a collaboration between us and the manufacturers. But, you know, like, we're very, very excited by, you know, how this shaped up and the performance that it delivers and the experience that it delivers. And the other thing that we also want to work on with manufacturers is actually the connectivity, like how to establish the connection, how to make that simple for the user. So, you know, like, we're very committed to this for the long haul, and, you know, we will share more news in the future.
This is night and day from Gen 1. Gen 1 was so annoying to connect. I got to tell you, like, if you try it or check out the videos that they put out for it. And also, if there's anything you're ever trying to do with CaptureOne, their YouTube channel has like a 2-minute video on how to do whatever you're looking for. So I would subscribe to CaptureOne's YouTube channel. They have full-on videos of lessons, but if that's like one thing or something they announce, in 60 seconds, they'll teach you what it is and how to do it. So check that out. Charles is saying, regarding CaptureOne's view towards generative AI, really appreciate the view and direction you've taken. Very cool. Pavel saying, we have portrait masking. What about landscape masking? You have Sky. I know that.
No, we have a tool called the AI brush. And it's really, really powerful, because what it does is that it segments an image.
Yeah.
And then you can just like draw a square, draw a rectangle, and it will like mask a segment of the image. It doesn't have, you know, what we call semantic understanding of like, oh, this is a sky or this is a tree. But it's a very, very powerful tool, and has made, you know, masking, you know, very, very, very efficient.
I'll tell you what's made masking efficient in CaptureOne is subject detection, background detection. Whoa. You know what I mean? When you have to shoot on a commercial white background, you have those few frames that a stand is there or the footprints are there. One click, crank the highlight over, I got my white background back. I'm like, oh, you have any idea how much of my life I get back on commercial sets now because of that? Vic is asking, CaptureOne ever coming to Linux? Wow, really? Linux?
Yeah, we don't have plans for Linux right now.
Jeez, man.
We've and actually, like our relationship with Apple is a very, very strong relationship, which is why CaptureOne works so incredibly well in the M series chipsets, and why it's been featured by Apple as
Oh yeah.
at some of their event announcements, including the AIM 5 earlier this year. Like for the Pro segment, they featured CaptureOne as the tool on their PR announcement.
So your new denoise, which I'm a
Mm,
monster fan of, it's like a miracle. I did a whole live stream on it on the events channel. If you want to watch it in real time, I got to tell you, when it got announced, I said, I don't know, man. I got an M2 MacBook. I think it's a little too old for this AI thing. Boom. I mean, 10 seconds. It took 25,000 ISO and cleaned it up. Here's the big thing that I don't think people get. There's always been a lot of denoise software out there, but as a portrait photographer and someone that's color psychotic, it always changed skin tones.
mm.
It always messed up the person for me. I don't know what you did. I don't know how you did it, but it doesn't do that. What I needed to do, though, is work on JPEG for the guys that shoot sports and press.
Yeah.
They are all over this. Like, it's amazing, but I only shoot JPEG because they're working in fast
Yeah.
to wire. Is denoise ever going to come to JPEG, you think?
So for now, this technology that we built is based on like reinterpreting the raw file, the raw data.
Oh, okay.
And in particular, it only works right now for the Bayer sensors, although, we are working on the X-Trans. But look, part of what we do is, we have this intimate understanding of skin colors, and like you had Niels Knudsen here as a guest in the space, who he's been with the company since the start, right?
That's
like
on
he's
the
one of
event channel.
early folks at phase one, and a lot of the science behind how do we represent colors, but also in particular how do we represent skin tones and skin textures in a way that is faithful across a huge range of skin tones and different demographics and people from different places. It's all because of the work that Niels has done, and Niels. I always talk of Niels as like, look, he holds the bar incredibly high for us. When we're building a product like Enhanced Denoise, like he's going to be one of the people that's going to be like testing the early builds and testing the early performance and giving feedback to the engineers and giving feedback to the product managers. And look, like Niels, he's a legend in the industry, and he's a legend at CaptureOne. And when Niels starts talking about colors or about skin texture or about like a person's appearance in CaptureOne, like we all sit and listen intently.
Bro, he's intense. If you don't know who this is, he was here live for like an hour and a half talking about the color science in CaptureOne. It's on this channel, the events channel. It's a while back, but it's the only one that's CaptureOne Deep Dive. Check that out. But man, he is intense, dude.
Yeah.
But I love that the guy behind everything I'm doing is that crazy about it.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of questions still to go here. Brian is asking, can CaptureOne do everything I do in Photoshop Elements for portraits and business photography and with a Canon R8? I don't know what you do.
Yeah. It's incredibly powerful for portraits, and like the one of the recent things that we launched was the retouch faces feature, which is really, really powerful to like make small adjustments to things like blemishes and like eye like
it doesn't
the eyes,
alter.
iris and but exactly like it does it in a way that is flattering and human, right? Like we're not trying to like change the person. We're just trying to maybe make some small adjustments that will that might have an element of creativity, but that in any event are going to be flattering to the person.
It's really interesting because there's other softwares that do AI retouching, whatever, and there's one model that we work with that she has these specific beauty marks, and it always got rid of them. And I'm like, where'd she go? Or one girl I know, she has a scar I love. It's really cool, and but the retouch kept on taking it out. But
yeah.
Something about yours understands what isn't the thing, what you want to take out, or not. It's weird.
Well, I'm gonna do a disservice to my Danish colleagues, because the Danish people, they try not to they have this whole thing about like, look, don't stand out, but I'm not Danish, so I'll take advantage of that, and I'll say that, look, we have taste. Like we have taste. Like and like I was talking earlier about Niels and how he holds a bar really high for us, and part of it is like, look, as a as a team, we have very intense conversations about like, look, when a photo comes out of CaptureOne, like what should that look like? And like, and we have a point of view, which is like, look, it should be natural and the skin texture should be there. And, you know, it should still look like the person who was
Yes.
the other side of the lens.
Yes. Someone's asking, are there any lifetime subscriptions available for CaptureOne?
Any what, sorry?
Like lifetime subscriptions. Could I buy in once and just
Yeah. So our pricing, it offers choice, because you can make a one-time payment for the current version of CaptureOne and then use it forever. We also offer subscriptions. That's the way the majority of our customers use CaptureOne. Yeah, the vast majority use subscriptions. Our subscriptions come in monthly and also in annual flavors. You know, when we say monthly, we mean monthly. When we say annual, we mean annual. So like it's a very simple thing. We also offer a lot of flexibility. Like you can switch from, you know, a one-time payment to a subscription. You can switch back. You know, we also offer a discount. So, you know, if you're switching from monthly to annual, or from annual to a license, like, you know, you'll always get a discount along the way. And if you've been a subscriber for 5 years or more, you're entitled to a license free of charge from us. So like we've tried to create our pricing in a way that is, you know, simple and offers choice, and it's also fair.
That's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah.
How long can you subscribe for?
So every year that you've been a subscriber, you earn a 20% cumulative discount on switching to a perpetual license, which means that if you've been a subscriber for 5 or more years, you have 100% discount. Yeah.
Huh.
And but let me tell you why we did it. It's because like people sometimes they take breaks, or they might retire from their photography career, but they still want to have access to their catalog and their tools and their photos. And, you know, if you've been a photographer for like 10 years or 15 years and you're like, okay, like I'm going to pause, then like, why would you lose access to your photos?
No, for sure.
And if you've been like using CaptureOne for all that time, like, why would you lose access to your catalog? So like we just tried to do something that felt right, and that felt like it was serving the way how we understand people in the industry, which is like, look, people enter the industry, people spend a few years, people take breaks, people come back. And we always asked ourselves, so like, how do we serve that in the best way?
Well, it's kind of funny because I feel like we're in a bubble sometimes. I go on these stages at imaging or something like that. As soon as you're done doing a demo, you have a couple hundred people going like, what was that program you were using?
Yeah.
You've never heard of this? But then every now and then I get the same question. Is there a light version of that where I can just tether and all I need to do is tether for me? And I'm like, would you think that if you made a tether only CaptureOne that didn't have all the tools, would that be a gateway for people to get more familiar with it and into it, do you think? Or you're like, no, try it for a month with the subscription?
We're seeing a lot of that actually with our mobile apps. So the iPhone and the iPad have become the gateway for people to start tethering. And then they upgrade into using CaptureOne. And the interesting thing is the way our technology is built, and it's also because of like, you know, how deep we've gone on the Apple architecture. The image pipeline is the same. The tether stack is exactly the same. All the AI models are also the same, which means that any camera that you can use on a MacBook, you can use it on an iPad. And when you see the image on the iPad, if you take that file and you make some adjustments and then you move that file over to your MacBook, it's just going to look exactly the same.
Well, also you have essentially your own cloud system. You were just showing me that you can shoot to like live to an internet space. So you don't have to transfer anything. You just get home and then they're sitting there for you.
Well, we don't move the raw files into the cloud. So like if you want to move from the iPad to your MacBook, like you can like airdrop it. Like we do have a cloud platform to like move the files, but on CaptureOne Live, we don't move the raw files.
Okay.
But one thing,
not a Dropbox, basically.
No, it isn't. But you know, one thing that we did launch you know, a few weeks ago is there's now this for CaptureOne Studio. You can have multiple users pointing their workstations at the same session, and they're on the same network. But it does mean that you might have, you know, the Digitech, for example, but you might also have like the art director on the side, like looking at the files and applying crops and doing selects, but they're both working in the same session.
The one thing that you just launched recently, the contact sheet thing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Very, very cool. And leaving the notes and stuff like that is, so you can essentially shoot a session and then make a contact sheet, but then you can also work collaboratively, be like this one versus that one, leave a note for someone, be like, this is cool, but is there when we return, like you just do a whole, I don't know, it's basically a whiteboard. It becomes essentially,
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
And we've got more plans for it to make it even more flexible. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, one thing that has become, you know, in the last few years, we've become very, very fast. Like we're doing more than one release a month.
Yeah.
So it's actually becoming a little bit hard to like keep up with like every single aspect of everything that we're doing. So, but yeah, like the contact sheets is something that is, you know, gaining more and more adoption. Also something that we're very proud of is combined masks, which we launched late last year, which allows you to like take multiple masks and then combine them in ways that, you know, like they allow a huge amount of creativity. It looks like I have something that I need to show you.
Oh man, I'm so amped, dude. I can't tell you, like, CaptureOne is one of these things that like I'm just so psyched on. It just keeps getting better, and there's very few things that the industry that I'm like, yeah, everything's awesome or whatever. The feature request thing. If you guys have anything you're looking to get into, go to CaptureOne.com. And is it on the support page or is it on the?
Yeah, you can find it via support. If you Google CaptureOne feature request, it'll take you straight to the right place.
And you can actually upvote ones that are there. So maybe look over what other people suggested. I found stuff that people suggest that I didn't even think about. And I'm like, actually, that would be amazing. And these Digitech meetups are great. Follow CaptureOne on Eventbrite to get notified if they're in your area in New York. They're always happening over here. I'm going to try to get them to host something here for the Digitechs because I think, why not? We got this space, you know. And just so you know how hands-on this guy, my man Rafael was here all night at my demo, just came to hang out. And he's showing like one guy a feature on CaptureOne. Like, this is how grassroots it still feels. It's incredible. If you want to learn about CaptureOne, I pinned in the chat the actual learn page where you can get videos, but also that 3-hour course that you can get certified from CaptureOne. If you want to be an assistant and you tell me that CaptureOne certified you, what? You got an edge right there. We can go on forever about this. Make sure you check out the events page for the Niels thing. The guy we were talking about that psychotic about color and everything. If you have any questions, Rafael, let me know down in those comments. Man, I can't thank you enough for your time, man.
No, thank you. And Seth, I just want to like truly thank you for being such a great partner for CaptureOne. Like I've always appreciated like all of your feedback, everything that you say, but also for the community that you have built. Like honestly, like coming to these events and like the energy in the room and like seeing like how much people like appreciate learning from you, and also seeing you like walk the floors at the big events, like that's been truly amazing.
No, thank
like
you.
You like we have a huge debt of gratitude towards you personally for, you know, for being such a great steward of the industry, to be honest. Like and I like we need so much more of that energy.
No, listen, I can't do what I do without what you're doing. Are you kidding me? Like, I need you guys to keep going. So I'm like all in on this. And when you had me speak at your booth, I was like, what am I going to do for a CaptureOne demo? I just shoot, I just light. So I just got really loud and hopefully it worked out for you. But
it did.
If you guys are going to Imaging USA next year, I think you guys are going to have a pretty heavy presence.
Yeah.
Can you say anything about that? Or
well, we're just working super closely with PPA, like super excited. You know, Angela Kirkin, who's the new CEO of PPA, like she's really brought like a huge number of like fantastic like ideas and new thoughts and you know ways to like build and support the industry. And you know, frankly, we're all in with that.
Yeah, I really hope you guys got. When I asked Rafael to join here, I was like, I don't want this to be like a tech demo. I really just want you guys to realize the humans that are really invested. I mean, they're really in this and they really care about the images we're putting out there, how we're doing it, and also our protections as creatives as well. I hope you got that from his approach to AI and how they're training their AI model. Really check it out. I think there's a 7-day free trial now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So if you want, try it out for 7 days. If you got Canon, today they just released for the R5 II and the R1. You can do wireless tethering. Check that out for yourselves. And try the denoise. Crank your camera all the way up, load an image and hit the denoise. And in like 10, 15 seconds, just watch what happens. I don't know how you did this. It's so good. It's so good. Okay. We're going to get going on. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, Dana Norton is coming back to talk about the myth behind portrait lenses. So come hang out either here in person or virtually. You can catch me over on the events channel that I've been pushing here as well. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Rafael, man.
Thanks for having me.
Much.
You made this.
Thank you.
This feel easy. Thank you so
it's
much.
easy. We're just hanging out and drinking coffee, right? That's all this is. Right?
That's all this is.
Guys, if you have any questions, Rafael, hit a comment down below. But for now, enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you next time right here on Co of the Creators. Be good to each other, guys. Later.